Maybe unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth. Hey, it's good to see everybody there at Nebraska Zen Center, and welcome to everyone who is zooming in online. Today's talk is about meaningful work. So there's probably I think we have a lot of wisdom in our sangha itself around this subject. So what I like to offer is a koan story. We'll look at the Blue Cliff Record, case 42, to give us some orienting to this subject. I'll offer some remarks about it, my own personal perspective, also coming from the Dharmic perspective. And then I'd like to invite some discussion from you guys. And I want to hear from you what about this. And I have specific discussion questions maybe that can help to further guide us in this exploration of meaningful work. I'm creating 8 or 9 points for optimizing Zazen, and this one is point 5, meaningful work, just to contextualize this particular talk. And as we start, before we get into the Blue Cliff Record, what I'd like to mention is a direct connection between meaningful work and Zazen specifically. It occurs to me that when we do Zazen, and just in my own experience of Zazen, there is this tendency in myself, and I suspect in many of us, to direct our attention inwards. And there's all kinds of precedents for that within the Buddhist tradition and within the secular mindfulness movement as well. But I want to suggest that is an incomplete understanding of Zazen, that we're not simply turning our attention inward and focusing on the self. And the key point for Zazen is that for us, for Soto Zen, I can't speak for other Buddhist traditions or meditation traditions, but for Soto Zen, it's really important, if we want to align ourselves with the world around us, to keep our eyes open. That's the instructions for Zazen right from the start. And Dogen Zenji says, always keep your eyes open. This might seem like a small point, but I think it has huge ramifications for our practice outside of Zazen. By keeping our eyes open, of course, with a soft focus, we're not intensely focusing on what we're seeing, but we're keeping a soft focus so that we're taking in the breadth of our vision, including our peripheral vision. And what I've found in my own meditation practice, when I do that, I feel a greater connection with the external world, But, when we're sitting, I think this is kind of a challenge for our practice, though, because when we're sitting facing a wall, you might really cut off that external world. And that may not serve us so well when it comes to meaningful work. Because with meaningful work, what we're thinking about here is, how do we connect our meditation practice, our Zen practice, beyond our cushion, right? How do we align the values of Zazen, mainly keeping the precepts, with the world around us? How do we connect with meaningful work in this time? And I really think this is not an easy question for any of us to answer. In fact, I think it's a koan. In fact, I think it's what we refer to in Zen as the Genjo koan. The Genjo Koan, Dogen's Genjo Koan is, what is my life about right here, right now, in the Dharma? Right? What is my life about right here, right now? And it's the question that I want to propose that we hold closely. The answer will come probably from a lot of different directions, but I think we got to hold on to that, the question of what is my life about? This is directly connected to meaningful work. And coming back to this idea of opening the eyes, keeping the eyes open, within the Genjo Koan itself, Dogen Zenji says, to study the way is to study the self. And a lot of us confuse that self with the small self. But actually, it's the big self. To study the way is to study the big self, which is this whole universe. To study the self, the big universe, is to forget the self, the small self. So he's saying the same thing, just in a different way. To forget the self is to be one with the myriad things. That's another way to say the same thing. To be one with the myriad things is to realize no barrier between self and other. Right? So again, here's the question, this bridge between Zazen, meditation practice that we do maybe once a day, maybe twice a day, maybe we do a weekend retreat. How do we bridge that with our life? And I want to suggest right from the start that the question is important to raise. Wherever we are with that, the question is really important to raise for us. Like, how do we carry out the values that we nurture in Zazen into the rest of our life, particularly in our working life? So, on that, I'd like to share case 42 of the Blue Cliff record. It's these koan cases in the Blue Cliff record and the Gateless Gate. There's so many different dimensions to them. There's so many different aspects to them, and I'm going to just highlight one piece here that I think for this particular question of meaningful work is central. So first of all, case 42. For those, I'm guessing most of us don't know it. And I wouldn't know it either unless I've been reading it. It's about a layman. It's about a Chinese layman named Pang. So this is somebody who is engaged in the world. And so again, I want to emphasize the fact that Soto Zen is not about removing ourselves from the world, but engaging with the world. Otherwise, why would there be a layman in this koan? Right? How do we, again, the question is, how do we engage with our actual work that makes it meaningful and aligned with our ethics, with our values? So this is about layman Pang, and he says, it's apparently layman Pang was studying at a Zen temple with the Zen teacher Yaku-san. Right? Yaku-san, he's one of the teachers that we chant his name in the morning ceremony. And as he was preparing to leave, he had been staying with Yaku-san for some time. Who knows how long? Maybe a week, maybe a month, maybe a year. I don't know. But keep in mind, layman Pang had a family. He had a wife and 2 children. So somehow he managed to integrate practice at the temple with practice with his family. So as he was getting ready to leave, as he was preparing to leave the temple, his teacher, Yaku-san, had 10 Zen students see him to the gate. So here's what happens. When he gets to the gate, it's snowing out. It might feel, right now with this heat, I don't know if you guys can feel this heat, but it's quite hot here in Iowa, I'm sure in Nebraska as well. And I know we've had some power outages there in Omaha recently, so grateful for the AC. But this is a story that took place in winter. It's snowing outside, and he's getting ready to leave. The layman pointed to the snow in the air. He pointed to the snow in the air. So this is a turning to the external world. He's pointing to the snow in the air. And he says, find snowflakes, they don't fall elsewhere. This is just, if we really take this particular statement that he makes and really meditate on it, really concentrate on it, I think it will lead us to a deep sense of meaning and purpose in our own life. He says, find snowflakes, they don't fall elsewhere. In other words, they're exactly where they need to be. At that time, a Zen student named Zen, his name was Zen, and he asks, where do they fall? So this is a question that comes from that particular monk's great ignorance. And we know because in the next line, Layman Pang rebukes the monk. He says, he rebukes the monk, and he says, the likes of you call yourself a Zen student? The king of death hasn't let you off. He says, your eyes see as if blind, your mouth speaks as if dumb. All right, so let's keep this, this, again, we want to make the context for this with meaningful work. And imagine here all these snowflakes coming around, and you know how snowflakes move, right? They're going, it seems to be chaotic. The snowflakes seem to be coming down in all different directions, bumping into each other, and then they land. And the Layman Pang is saying they're all exactly where they're supposed to be. They're all, so here's one thing I want to point out is that looking at this from the outside in, when we're looking at the world from the outside in, it looks totally chaotic. But Layman Pang, he had been honing his concentration. He's not looking at the snowflakes as other. He's not looking at them as something out there. He's looking at himself as one of those snowflakes coming down, right? And in a sense, each one of us is like one of those snowflakes. And we try, as human beings, we try to pull ourselves out and objectify what we see out there as if we don't have a place in it. And the world appears chaotic from that perspective. But if you get inside the snowflake, right? If you get inside the world and you're 100% inside of your life, then you're exactly where you need to be. Right? The snowflakes are not falling randomly, and in the same way, our life is not a random, chaotic expression. It's not something that our life isn't put together by chance. This is an important piece here. Our life isn't about chance. It's not random. In other words, there's a sense of meaning. There's a sense of purpose to our own lives. But from the outside, it appears, or it may appear, chaotic. And when we're not concentrated, when our attention is diffuse or scattered, it might seem we're just drifting in the wind. But we got to get inside the snowflake. So what I'd like to do is consider some questions around the idea of meaningful work. I mean, this is just kind of a real overview, and I don't have the answers for you and for your life. What does meaningful work mean? But I'd like to give us now a chance to explore what that might mean. So I have a series of about 4 discussion questions, and I'll just read them off, and you can consider them, and maybe we can take them one at a time, or if there's one that speaks to you, you want to bring it up, then do that. And even if there's something else about this, what I've just shared, or that comes up for you that's more pressing. I really encourage you to bring that up for us, okay? Okay, so discussion question 1. How do you align your personal values with your professional life? Right? How do you align your personal values with your professional life? And connected to this, can you share an experience where your work felt deeply aligned with your inner values? Can you share an experience of that? Okay, that's one. That's one. Number 2, and I'll repeat these I'll repeat these. What obstacles have you encountered seeking meaningful work? How have you addressed them? How do you cope with periods when your work feels purposeless? Okay. So this has to do with the obstacles to meaningful work. Number 3, in what ways can small everyday actions in your work contribute to a greater sense of purpose? All right, so honing in on the concrete. In what ways can small everyday actions in your work contribute to a deeper sense of meaning and purpose? And the last one, how can our sangha support each other in finding meaningful work or sustaining work? All right, so those are the questions.